Elijah had just won the greatest victory of his life. And yet, he was about to run for his life. This story begins at a moment of triumph. Fire had fallen from the sky. A nation had watched in awe. And Elijah, a prophet of God, stood proven before everyone. But what happens after the miracle is not what most people expect. To understand Elijah's story, we need to understand his world. Israel was divided. Not politically, but spiritually. King Ahab ruled the northern kingdom. He was powerful, strategic, and deeply compromised. His wife, Queen Jezebel, had introduced the worship of Baal, a storm and fertility god worshipped in surrounding nations. Baal worship promised rain, harvest, and prosperity. In a dry land, those promises were tempting. Many people tried to worship both Baal and the God of Israel. They hedged their bets. They kept options open. Elijah would have none of it. He appeared suddenly, without introduction, and declared a drought. No rain, no dew, only dryness. For years the land suffered. Then came the showdown. Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal to a public contest on Mount Carmel. 2 altars, 2 sacrifices. No fire. The God who answered with fire would be acknowledged as the true God. The prophets of Baal went first. They shouted. They danced. They pleaded. Nothing happened. Elijah even mocked them. Perhaps your God is asleep, he said. Perhaps he is busy. Then Elijah prayed. Fire fell from heaven. It consumed the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, even the water in the trench. The people fell face down. The drought ended. Rain returned. It was a victory unlike any other. And then Elijah ran. Queen Jezebel heard what had happened. She was furious. She sent a message to Elijah. A simple promise. By this time tomorrow you will be dead. Elijah fled. This detail matters. Elijah had stood alone before hundreds of prophets. He had watched fire fall from the sky. But one threat from one person sent him into panic. Fear does not always make sense. Elijah ran south into Judah, then farther into the wilderness. He collapsed under a broom tree, exhausted, hungry, emotionally empty. He prayed a desperate prayer. I have had enough, Lord. Take my life. This is not the prayer of a faithless man. It is the prayer of a burned out one. God did not correct him. God did not lecture him. God fed him. An angel brought bread and water. Elijah slept. Then ate. Then slept again. Sometimes the most spiritual response to despair is rest. Strength returns slowly. Then God told Elijah to travel to Mount Horeb, also known as Sinai. This was the mountain where Moses encountered God generations earlier. The place of covenant and calling. Elijah walked 40 days and 40 nights. The number is not accidental. It signals preparation, testing, and transition. When he arrived, Elijah found a cave and went inside. God spoke. What are you doing here, Elijah? It was not a question for information. It was a question for reflection. Elijah answered honestly. He said he had been zealous. He said Israel had rejected God's covenant. He said the prophets had been killed. And he believed he was the only one left. Loneliness shaped his words. God told Elijah to stand on the mountain. Something was about to happen. A powerful wind tore through the rocks. It shattered stones. It shook the mountain. But God was not in the wind. Then an earthquake followed. The ground moved violently beneath him. But God was not in the earthquake. Then came fire. It echoed the miracle on Mount Carmel. But again, God was not in the fire. After the fire came something unexpected, a gentle whisper, a thin, quiet sound. And when Elijah heard it, he covered his face. Because this time, God was present. The story pauses here. The prophet who called down fire now listens for a whisper. The man who confronted kings now stands silently in a cave. And God is about to say something that will redefine Elijah's understanding of power, presence, and purpose. But first, Elijah must listen. The whisper did not shout Elijah's name. It did not demand attention. It simply waited. Elijah covered his face and stepped toward the opening of the cave. This was instinct, a recognition deeper than thought. The God who answered with fire on Mount Carmel now spoke in silence. And once again the question came. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" God asked the same question twice. Not because he lacked understanding, but because Elijah needed to hear himself answer. Elijah spoke as he had before. He repeated the same words, the same pain. He had been faithful. He had obeyed. He had stood alone. And now, he believed. He was the only one left. This moment reveals something important. Elijah's problem was not fear alone. It was perspective. Exhaustion had narrowed his vision. Isolation had distorted his understanding. He believed the story was over. God did not argue with Elijah's feelings, but he gently corrected Elijah's conclusions. God gave Elijah instructions. He was to return to re-enter the world he had fled, to anoint new leaders, to prepare the next generation. And then God revealed something Elijah did not know. He was not alone. 7,000 others, God said, had remained faithful. They had not bowed to Baal. They had not compromised. Elijah had never seen them, but they existed. The cave had convinced him otherwise. This is one of the quiet truths of the story. Loneliness can lie. When fear and fatigue combine, even faithful people can believe they are abandoned. God did not shame Elijah for believing this. He expanded his vision beyond it. Then God gave Elijah a companion, Elisha. Elijah was instructed to find him, to train him, to walk with him. This mattered. Elijah's calling was not ending. It was changing. The prophet who had stood alone would now invest in someone else. The voice who had shouted would now teach. Elijah left the mountain. He found Elisha plowing a field. An ordinary task. An ordinary day. Elijah placed his cloak on him. It was a silent gesture, but it carried meaning. Elisha understood immediately. Calling does not always arrive with fire. Sometimes it arrives in a field. Elisha left everything and followed Elijah. Together, they traveled. Together, they witnessed God's work. But Elijah was no longer the same man. The cave had changed him. He had learned that God was not limited to spectacle. That divine presence could be gentle. That power could be quiet. This lesson mattered, because Elijah's story was not about miracles alone. It was about endurance, about listening, about recognizing God's voice not only in moments of victory but in moments of collapse. The fire on Mount Carmel was dramatic, but it did not heal Elijah's soul. The whisper did. This story invites an uncomfortable realization. Sometimes God is loud when we expect him to be quiet, and quiet when we expect him to be loud. The question is not whether God is speaking. It is whether we are listening for the right sound. Elijah's journey did not end in the cave, but the cave changed how he walked forward. He was no longer chasing confrontation. He was cultivating faithfulness. And yet, Elijah's story is not finished. There is still an ending to come. A departure unlike any other. A legacy that would echo far beyond his lifetime. But before that ending arrives, Elijah must continue walking, teaching, listening, because the whisper that met him in the cave will guide him all the way to the end. And what happens next will surprise even the prophet himself. Elijah walked on. The mountain was behind him now. The cave was empty, but the whisper remained. Something had shifted inside the prophet. He still carried authority. He still spoke truth, but he no longer measured God's presence by spectacle alone. The years that followed were quieter. Elijah continued to confront injustice. He spoke against abuse of power. He challenged kings and defended the vulnerable. But increasingly, he did so alongside Elisha, the older prophet taught by example. Not only how to confront evil, but how to listen. Elisha watched closely. He saw the courage. He also saw the weariness. Calling, Elijah had learned, is not sustained by intensity. It is sustained by attentiveness. The world around them was still unstable. Kings rose and fell. Faithfulness remained costly. Yet Elijah no longer believed he carried the burden alone. One day, Elijah knew the end was near. The story does not explain how he knew. It simply tells us that he did. He and Elisha traveled together from place to place. At each stop, Elijah urged Elisha to stay behind. Elisha refused every time. As the Lord lives, he said, I will not leave you. This matters. The man who once believed he was alone now saw loyalty walking beside him. Finally, they crossed the Jordan River. Elijah struck the water with his cloak. The river parted. It was a quiet echo of earlier miracles, not announced, not celebrated, just obedience. On the far side of the river, Elijah asked Elisha what he wanted. Elisha made a bold request. He asked for a double portion of Elijah's spirit. Elijah did not promise it. He said only that it would be granted if Elisha saw what was about to happen. Then it happened. A chariot of fire appeared. Horses of fire separated the two men. Elijah was taken up in a whirlwind. No illness. No grave. No farewell speech. The prophet who met God in a whisper departed in fire. But the fire no longer defined him. Elisha watched. He cried out. And Elijah's cloak fell to the ground. Elisha picked it up. He returned to the Jordan. He struck the water. And it parted again. The legacy continued. Elijah's story ends without death, but it does not end without meaning. This is not a story about spectacular exits. It is a story about transformation. Elijah began as a prophet of confrontation. He became a prophet of listening. He learned that God is not only present in moments that overwhelm the senses, but in moments that quiet the soul. The whisper in the cave changed everything. It changed how Elijah understood success, how he understood faithfulness, how he understood God. This story speaks powerfully to anyone who feels exhausted by the noise, by constant urgency, by endless demands. It reminds us that hearing God does not always require more volume. Sometimes it requires less striving, less proving, more listening. Elijah did not fail on Mount Carmel, but he nearly collapsed after it. And God met him not with rebuke, but with rest, with food, with presence, then with a whisper. The story teaches that burnout does not disqualify calling, that fear does not erase faith, that silence is not absence. Elijah's greatest lesson did not come when fire fell from heaven. It came when everything went quiet. And that lesson remains. God still speaks. Often not in the earthquake, not in the wind, not in the fire, but in the gentle whisper. The question is not whether God is speaking. The question is whether we are still enough to hear him.